My name is Frank Bauer. This is my informational speech or public speech at Luther Rice University. I'd like to start today by sharing a story with you about my youth group. A couple of kids were having a discussion as to the biggest influence or the primary reason you grow up with a belief in a certain religion. One wanted to say that it's purely based on where you live. That if you're in America, you're going to grow up to be a Christian. If you're in the Middle East, you're going to grow up to be Muslim. And the other wanted to say it's purely choice and what you learn and hear, and it's all sorts of influencers for you. So I wanted to start by saying today, in the 2012 census of the United States, there are 315 million people in our country. Of that 315 million, there are roughly 56 million that attend a church on a regular basis. 300,000 congregations in America, and only 56 million people show up to church. That's 1 out of every 5 people in our country show up to a church on a regular basis on Sunday. All of this causes me to ask, why does so few of our population go to church? And then more specifically, why are kids that are raised in the church and being taught leaving the church between the ages of 18 and 29? In the book You Lost Me by David Kinnaman, he said that nearly 60%, 58% of people that grow up in the church between the age of 18 and 29 will leave the church and really doubt the faith that they grew up in. Through my study, I come to realize 2 big factors. One was their lack of relationships in certain areas, and 2, the uncertainty that they developed and possessed in relation to their Christian faith. First, we're going to take a look at relationships. The first primary relationship that one must possess, or you'll leave the church, is your personal relationship to God or Jesus. If you're not saved, if you have not accepted that gift of Jesus Christ, if you don't know God personally, you will abandon the church. There's no reason for you to stay. In a book by Roger Dudley as to why our teenagers leave the church, he indicated that a big factor was a relationship between the parents and the child. Parents that maintain a healthy relationship with their children, the child is more likely to remain in the church when they hit that age range. A healthy relationship between a parent and a child shows communication, concern for one another. They interact with each other. They communicate. It's not just surface where they get together and have meals together and then they don't see each other for 24 more hours. But rather there's a give and take on a daily basis. But where there's a healthy relationship, the child is more likely to remain in the church once they hit that age of freedom where they can go and do whatever they want. And a lot of them choose to abandon the faith that they've been raised in. As I said, the second point I want to look at is the uncertainty that they possess. They grow up knowing and being taught repeatedly the stories of Adam and Eve and Noah and Joseph and David and Goliath. But they have no real understanding as to what that means, what the Bible means to their life. They're uncertain how the Bible is going to tell them to pursue a job. In Dave Kinnaman's book, You Lost Me, he says that 86 to 90% of the people, of the youth the young adults that he interviewed, 86 to 90% of them said that they don't know how the Bible helps them in the real world life. It doesn't help them in applying themselves for jobs, families. They don't understand it. Another thing they have an uncertainty of is really Christianity as a whole. They have difficulty tying the love of Christ and the love of God to send His Son for our sins, meshing that or tying that together with the God of the Old Testament, where He wiped out the world minus 8 people with Noah. He burned down Sodom and Gomorrah. How do they mesh those two things? The youth and young adults are struggling with this issue. And so when they get out in the real world, when they enter secular colleges, universities, and are asked some of these questions, they don't know. They've never had to think through that. But in summing up, the uncertainty that so many young adults and youth possess, and the necessity of good, valid relationships are two things that are going to keep youth and young adults in the church as they grow up. So if we can keep the relationships, make sure, one, that they have that relationship with God. Two, that they have a parental figure that they are close with and interact with on a daily basis. And also just teaching them the application aspect of Christianity in the Bible to their real world life today and how they can walk. I think we would retain a much higher percentage of the youth that grow up in the church. Thank you.